Well, hi there and welcome to my channel. My name is Suzanne and I'm happy that you're here with me today. Today I'm going to talk about a really messy topic. I'm going to talk about something that is not only something that we don't particularly like to talk about, and it's certainly something that is even harder to put into practice. This is something that I have, seriously, to be honest with you, keeping it real, this is something that I have struggled and wrestled and grappled with for years. This is not something that has come easy to me. Though I wish it had, maybe it would have saved me a lot of issues and a lot of struggles and a lot of heartache down along my path of life. But it's something that hasn't been easy for me. But it's something that's been really important for me to do. So I want to talk about this today. And this is forgiving other people. Walking in a place of forgiveness. I know, right? It is so hard to forgive others. So before I start, I want to give a definition of forgiveness. According to the Webster's Dictionary, forgiveness means a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengefulness towards another person or group of people. So that's what forgiveness is. Now, this is what forgiveness isn't. Because I think that we struggle so much with the thought of even giving someone else our forgiveness because we don't understand what forgiveness isn't. So forgiveness isn't forgetting about what's happened to you. Ever forgetting. Even when you forgive, you will always remember. There are things that will happen to a person, horrible things that will happen. A person is not expected to forget that thing in order to forgive it. So the first thing is, in the process of forgiving, you're not under pressure to have to forget it in order to forgive. The second thing that I think is really difficult is implying that what happened isn't really a big deal. Forgiving is a really big deal, and what has happened to you or against you is a super big deal, and it is something that has created a lot of pain and a lot of sorrow and a lot of heartache, or else you wouldn't need to forgive, right? Like it wouldn't be an issue. So these things are really such a big deal. So the ask to forgive is huge. It is a huge ask. Another misconception I think we have about forgiving other people is we are scared to forgive them because we think it means that we have to let that person back into our life. Now that may be the case. Maybe forgiveness will actually result in a reconciliation in that relationship. But maybe it won't. There are times when it's not wise to go back into a relationship with the people who've hurt you. So you don't have to have the pressure on you. Now I have to be in relationship with this person in order to forgive them. You can forgive them, and then you weigh out the pros and cons. And depending on what the offense is, you may choose not to have that person back into your life again. Or you may choose that if you were to let that person back into your life, you'll set boundaries around yourself, that this person, that you're putting around yourself to protect yourself from further pain. Now, maybe I should talk about boundaries in another video because that is a whole topic all on its own. So that's what forgiveness isn't. Now, forgiveness also isn't something that I'm doing for the person who's hurt me. It's not me giving them a favor. It's not me doing something for them. Forgiveness is something that I do for myself. Because as we saw, the definition of forgiveness is letting go, consciously choosing to let go of resentment and bitterness and the offense against that person. So it's something that I'm holding onto myself. I'm holding resentment and anger and bitterness on myself, and what I'm doing is saying I'm going to forgive you. So I'm taking these things outside of myself and I'm putting them out here and I'm letting them go. I'm no longer going to hold this against you. So it's not for the other person. When we forgive, we are doing ourselves, as hard as it is, the biggest kindness of all. John Hopkins has done a lot of studies on the whole concept of forgiveness and how this affects mental health. So this is a topic that is been widely researched. And what they have found is that forgiveness, studies have found that some people are more naturally forgiving, which is true. Maybe I didn't fall in that category because I really struggled with forgiving. So these people who are more forgiving, interestingly, they found they tend to be more satisfied with their lives and have less experiences with depression, anxiety, stress, anger, and hostility. People who hang on to grudges, however, are more likely to experience severe depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as other health conditions. However, they point out that there is hope. A person can learn to forgive, because my next point is going to be that forgiveness is a choice. When I get to the point in my life, which is what happened to me really, I got to the point in my life where I thought, I do not want to live like this anymore. This is actually not working for me. I am not this person who's experiencing a satisfied life. In fact, I did struggle with bouts of depression, not deep depression, and bouts of this and that. I just was dissatisfied. And I think that the best thing to describe me would be that I would feel anger quite easily, which I don't anymore, but I used to. And I realized this wasn't working for me. But you know what, behind all that, I knew that I needed to forgive. So for me, forgiveness, or for anybody for that matter, forgiveness is a choice. However, you won't be willing to choose to forgive until a person comes to the point, you know what, it's time for me to heal now. I have nursed this pain and this hurt for long enough. In fact, the Stanford University has studied this, and one doctor studied this deeply, and he found that the longer we hang on to the anger of unforgiveness, it actually changes the neural pathways in the brain, where you actually learn to create a habit and a lifestyle of hostility and unforgiveness, or anger rather, in reaction to everything in life. So you can imagine, like, your brain starts to rewire itself. And what neuroscience has discovered is the brain is a wonderful thing, and it has what is called neuroplasticity, which means that we can actually, through changing the way we do life, we can remold, we can rewire our brain. So if you've had a lifestyle of where you've held a lot of bitterness and resentment, and you kind of fall into this category, I want to hold out the olive branch of hope to you that you can forgive. But you have to decide that you will forgive. I also think that when we are experiencing the process of forgiveness, or even before we realize we need to forgive, we're going to experience a lot of anger. And you know what? I think being angry at injustices is appropriate, and it's totally right to be angry about the horrible things that are done. Anger is appropriate. It is staying in that place of anger that can become so as you hear the word now, it's like a trending word, so toxic. For a person to continue in a state of anger, it's going to sabotage your life on so many levels, that a person has to come to the point where, yes, I am angry about this, I am hurt about this, I feel grief and loss and sorrow and sadness about this. But there comes a point where a person has to let go of this. Sometimes staying in a place of unforgiveness is actually rewarding, and the anger actually, we stay angry because anger is like a safeguard that we can build around our heart. Like, while I'm angry, I do not need to let you in because I'm angry with you. And in fact, I think that sometimes we can hang on to anger too long, because on some level it makes us superior to you. Like, look what you did to me, you horrible, horrible person. How dare you hurt me? And as long as I'm holding on to this place of anger, I can kind of feel like I have power over this person, whether they're aware of the effect that they've had on me or not. Inside of me, that anger makes me have a sense of that I have power over you because of what you did to me, and you're such a horrible person. And I think that that's one reason why we might not be able to let go of our anger and work through the process where we can forgive a person. Also, being angry allows us to remain a victim. And there's nothing more powerless than actually being a victim. I remember years ago, something horrible was happening in my life, and I went to a counselor. And I'll never forget the day he looked at me and he said to me, you know what, Suzanne, you are not a victim. And something about that just really struck a chord in my heart. And I thought, you know what, you're right, I'm not a victim. And it completely changed this life-changing circumstance. It completely changed the way I moved forward. And I didn't move forward as a victim. I moved forward actually feeling quite empowered that this person had no control over me anymore, and I did not need to let that happen to me anymore. So there's great freedom in not holding on to my anger, because it allows me to continue to play the victim. I also found too that holding on to anger for me kept that person out. I was kind of scared. I felt this fear a lot actually. If I let down my guard and I forgive this person or people, that would mean that they could come back into my life and heart and hurt me again. So I actually, sometimes anger for me was protective, though counterproductive. It was protective. And I sometimes wonder if anger isn't my way of protecting myself. And sometimes the anger that's associated with unforgiveness is a way of controlling the situation. When I get angry, everybody stands to attention, gets in line, maybe doesn't say what they wanted to say because they're so scared of my anger that they would rather say nothing than confront me. And so therefore I back off, they back off, which is what I want them to do. But in the process of them backing off because of my anger, I shut myself in and I keep people out. So though anger at the beginning, and maybe for a time as we're processing the whole idea of needing to come to grips with forgiving, anger serves a purpose. But then there comes a point in our life where anger stops serving a purpose. And it's like it starts eating us up and now is counterproductive and is working against us, not for us. First of all, I want to put out there that forgiving other people is really hard work. There is nothing easy about true, deep, heartfelt forgiveness. It is probably one of the hardest things a person will do in order to let go of all the resentment and pain. It is not easy. It is hard work. I believe that forgiveness is an event where we come to a place in our life where we go, I'm choosing to forgive this person. And then there's the process. So when we come to the place where we're ready to heal, we come to the event. And I want to talk about the process of forgiveness. This is what I suggest that a person does. Take the offense that has occurred, regardless of what it is, and write it down. Write down the event. In fact, write down all the feelings and the emotions and the betrayal and the hurt and the rejection and the abandonment and the cruelty and the loss that you have felt as a result of what has happened to you. And then you look at that and you realize that a lot of the anger that a person feels is because there's the grief attached to what has happened. I say someone has rejected you. There's that grief of loss of that relationship. Or someone has done something horrible to you. It's a violation against your person that you now no longer have that sense that I feel safe because you have been violated against. And I would be looking at all those things and recognizing that there's a grieving process that goes along with coming to the point where we truly forgive. And that was the case for me, having to grieve the loss of relationships or the loss of a dream or something someone has done to me that was horrible, or something that has happened to our family, like the loss of a child being brutally murdered, having to work out the grief and the sorrow, getting to the point what the losses, what was entailed in those losses, in order to come to the point of being able to forgive. And recognizing that what has hurt deeply. I think it is wrong, and I think it's an injustice to tell people that to rush through the process of forgiveness, and especially for things that are really have impacted you. Now, what impacts one person might impact another person differently, but that pain is real for you, regardless of what it is that has happened to you. But you do know that it's affecting you, and you do know that there comes a point where a person has to decide, do I let this thing, this offense, this horrible thing that's happened to me control me for the rest of my life, or do I choose to forgive and let it go? And I hope that you choose the latter, because that is the one, the choice that is going to bring you so much healing and wholeness and health and happiness into your life. So now that I've come to the place where I'm willing to forgive, and I've worked through the process of the anger, the grief, the sorrow, and looked at it all, and come to the place where now I'm ready to let this go. Maybe sometimes writing a letter to that person and telling them what you're forgiving them for, how it made you feel, but now you're letting it go. You're no longer holding this against them. But the clincher is, I wouldn't send them the letter. I would just maybe burn it as a sign of, this is the day, this is the stake I put in the ground, and this is the day I forgive this person, and from this moment on, I'm no longer experiencing resentment or anger or hostility towards this. This is something that I'm now letting go of. I have forgiven you. And that's the day that I think that you'll start to feel a whole lot lighter. And if the thoughts were to come back, you remember that day, because you had that day where you wrote them a letter, you said your piece, and then you took that letter and you burned it, and you go, no, I've actually forgiven that person. Because there will be times, we're just human beings, right? We're human, and every so often thoughts do come to our minds. Even the people that I have forgiven, sometimes thoughts will come into my mind and I want to go back to that place, but I'll go, no, you know what, I've forgiven that person. I don't hold anything against them. In fact, you know what, for me as a Christian, sometimes I might even pray for them and ask God to bless them. So the thoughts, those kind of bad thoughts, very rarely come into my mind anymore. But when they do, and if they do, I pray a blessing over that person, and I remember that I have forgiven them, and I've been enjoying incredible freedom as a result. And ultimately, for me, in my Christian faith, my whole faith is built around knowing that Jesus Christ has forgiven me. And even though forgiveness has been a process for me as a Christian, but I've been confronted with the fact that I need to forgive, just like I've needed forgiveness for the things I've done. But you know what? I need forgiveness too. And the people that have offended me, I need to forgive them for my sake. I like what this one counselor once said. Unforgiveness is like me drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So anyway, there's my list of what forgiveness is and what forgiveness isn't. And I really truly hope that you choose to do the hard, messy, difficult, painful work of forgiving, and that you might enjoy a life of freedom and health and wholeness and peace of mind. Anyway, that's all I have for today. And all I have to say to you now is God bless you, and I will see you in the next video.